I was standing at my kitchen window with my morning coffee when I saw him pull up. Brandon, my son-in-law, back from his 2-week business trip. The Mercedes rolled into his driveway across the street, and I watched his face through the windshield. Watched the exact moment the color drained right out of it. The moving truck was gone. The locks were changed, and 2 police cars sat in his driveway, their red and blue lights painting streaks across that precious Mercedes he loved so much. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Upstairs, my 5 grandchildren were finally sleeping peacefully after 2 weeks of the most important lessons of their young lives. 2 weeks that had changed absolutely everything. Brandon's hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone. I knew exactly what he was finding. Bank accounts frozen, credit cards declined, his email flooding with letters from lawyers and investigators. Everything he'd built his arrogant little life on, gone. Just like that. He looked toward my house. Our eyes met through the window. I raised my coffee mug to him in a small salute and smiled. The same smile I'd given him 2 weeks ago when he dumped those 5 terrified children on my doorstep with nothing but garbage bags and a box of cereal. Except this time, he finally understood what that smile really meant. Detective Cooper was walking toward him now, badge visible on his belt. I'd given the detective everything: bank statements, text messages, emails, recorded phone calls, everything. Brandon thought he was so clever. Thought I was just some doddering old woman who'd happily babysit while he jetted off to Cancun with his 24-year-old secretary. He'd actually said it to my face. You don't do anything anymore. You can watch them. You don't do anything anymore. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that I'd spent 40 years as an elementary school principal. I'd dealt with hundreds of entitled parents. I could spot lies from across a cafeteria, and I documented misconduct so thoroughly that no appeal ever stood a chance. I'd just spent 2 weeks applying every single one of those skills to systematically destroying his carefully constructed house of cards. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Emma. "Mom, what did you do?" I smiled again, softer this time. "Oh, sweetheart. I did what I should have done 2 years ago when I first noticed those bruises you tried to hide. What I should have done when you started making excuses for why the kids were always hungry, always anxious, always wearing the same stained clothes. I did what you were too afraid to do. I protected my grandbabies, and I made absolutely certain their father would never, ever underestimate an old woman who doesn't do anything again. But let me back up and tell you how a single phone call 2 weeks ago turned into the most satisfying lesson I've ever taught in my entire life. Because this story, every single detail is worth it. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. My name is Margaret Ellen Thompson. I'm 67 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I was living a quiet, peaceful retirement. I just finished 40 years as an elementary school principal, 40 years of managing budgets, supervising teachers, handling difficult parents, and making sure every child in my building got what they needed. When I retired last June, I thought I'd earned some rest. My husband Harold had passed away 3 years before. Losing him nearly broke me. We'd built everything together, raised our 2 daughters, bought our home, planned our golden years. But grief has a way of reshaping you, doesn't it? I learned to live alone in our 4-bedroom house, took up gardening, joined a book club, tried to figure out what my life meant now that I wasn't Principal Thompson anymore. The truth is, retirement was harder than I expected. I felt invisible sometimes, like I'd gone from running a school of 400 students to being just another old woman nobody noticed. You know that feeling? When people start talking over you or making decisions for you, like you've suddenly lost your ability to think? But I had Emma close by. My youngest daughter lived right across the street with her husband Brandon and their 5 children, Lily, Mason, Sophia, Jacob, and little Olivia. Having them so close should have been a blessing. And at first, it was. Emma had met Brandon 8 years ago at some corporate event. He was a sales executive, all charm and expensive suits. Talked constantly about his achievements, his sales numbers, his company car. My Harold never trusted him. Said something about his eyes was off. I brushed it aside as typical father protectiveness. God, I wish I'd listened. The first few years seemed fine on the surface. Brandon provided well, or so it appeared. They bought that house across from me. Brandon's idea, he said, so I could help with the kids. 5 children in 7 years. Emma went from being this vibrant marketing professional to an exhausted stay-at-home mother who barely made eye contact anymore. I started noticing things about 18 months ago. Small things that made my stomach twist. The children would come over for visits absolutely ravenous. Not normal kid hungry. Desperate hungry. 7-year-old Sophia once asked me if she could take crackers home for later. Her voice was so small, so careful. When I made Sunday dinners, all 5 of them would eat like they hadn't seen food in days. Emma would laugh it off. "Oh, you know kids, Mom. Always hungry, growing bodies." But I was a school principal for 40 years. I knew the signs of food insecurity. I'd reported it dozens of times. These weren't growing kids with healthy appetites. These were children who weren't being fed properly at home. Then there were the clothes. The same outfits week after week, getting tighter, more worn. Holes in shoes, stains that never came out because they'd been worn too many times between washings. One day, I bought Lily new shoes, just a simple pair from Target, and Emma cried when I gave them to her. Not happy tears. Something else. Something that felt like shame and relief and fear all mixed together. Why would a sales executive's wife cry over a $20 pair of children's shoes? Brandon was gone constantly. Business trips, Emma would say. Miami, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, sometimes for a week or more. Emma would look absolutely exhausted, barely holding it together with 5 small children and no help. I'd offer to watch them, and she'd always say the same thing. "Brandon doesn't like imposing on you, Mom." Imposing? I'm their grandmother. That's not imposing. That's family. I saw bruises on Emma's arms a few times. Once, a faint mark on her cheek she'd tried to cover with makeup. "Oh, I'm so clumsy, Mom." Walked right into the cabinet door. The same excuse my student Bethany Chen's mother used back in 2003 before I called social services. I knew that excuse. I knew exactly what it meant. But Emma was an adult. She kept insisting everything was fine. And I was afraid. Afraid to push. Afraid to lose access to my grandchildren. Afraid to admit that my daughter might be trapped in something terrible. So I watched. And worried. And did nothing. Have you ever known something was wrong but been too scared to face it? That's where I was, watching my daughter and grandchildren suffer across the street while I pruned my roses and pretended not to see. Then came that Tuesday morning 2 weeks ago, 8:47 a.m. I was finishing my coffee, staring at my empty calendar, feeling that familiar ache of uselessness. The phone rang. Brandon's name on the screen. "Margaret, it's Brandon." Not, "Hi, Mom," or "How are you?" Just my name, flat and cold. "Hello, Brandon. Is everything all right? I'm dropping the kids off at your place in an hour. Emma and I are going out of town for 2 weeks. Business and personal trip. You don't do anything anymore anyway, so you can watch them." I sat down slowly. "Excuse me?" "The kids, 5 of them. I'll drop them off with some clothes and stuff. We leave this afternoon. Be ready." Not a question, not a request, an order. Like I was the hired help. "Brandon, 2 weeks is quite..." "Prepare for what? You're retired. You literally sit around all day. This gives you something to do. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Click. He hung up on me. I sat there holding the phone, something hot and sharp rising in my chest. You don't do anything anymore. You literally sit around all day. 40 years I ran a school, managed $1-million budgets, supervised 50 staff members, shaped thousands of young minds. And I don't do anything? But that wasn't even the worst part. Emma was supposedly going with him. Emma, who'd never mentioned a trip. Emma, who could barely get through a Tuesday. I called her immediately. She answered on the 5th ring, voice shaking. "Mom?" "Honey, Brandon just called. He said you're both leaving and I'm watching the kids?" Silence. Then, "Yes, it's very last minute, a work thing. I'm sorry we didn't ask properly." "Are you actually going, Emma?" Longer silence. "Mom, I have to go. Thank you for watching them. I'll pack their things. Love you." She hung up, just like that. At 10:15, Brandon's Mercedes pulled into my driveway. He didn't get out, just honked, twice, like I was a valet. I opened the door. 5 children stood on my porch with 2 garbage bags and a box of cereal. Not suitcases. Garbage bags. Lily held Olivia's hand. They all looked terrified. Brandon rolled down his window. "They'll be fine. You've got plenty of space." I could see Emma in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, face white as paper. "Brandon, wait. Gotta catch a flight. Thanks again." And he was gone. I stood there with 5 small, scared children looking up at me. Mason was crying silently. Jacob's thumb was in his mouth. Olivia whimpered, "Nana?" And something in me, something that had been sleeping since retirement, woke up. The part of me that had dealt with entitled parents and protected neglected children for 4 decades. The part that didn't take nonsense from anyone. I smiled at those babies and crouched down to their level. "Well, hello, my darlings. Welcome to Nana's house. Who's hungry?" 5 hands shot up. Of course they were. I brought them inside, fed them a real breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, fruit, juice, and watched them eat like they were starving. Then I went into my bedroom, closed the door, and called my neighbor Carol. Carol Henderson had been a family lawyer for 35 years. Sharp as a tack and tougher than nails. "Carol," I said quietly, "I need your help. I think my son-in-law is abusing my daughter and neglecting my grandchildren, and I have 2 weeks to prove it." There was a pause, then Carol's voice, steady and sure. "Tell me everything, Margaret. And I mean everything." That was the moment I decided. Brandon Mitchell had just made the biggest mistake of his entitled, cruel life. He thought I didn't do anything anymore. He was about to find out exactly what a retired school principal could do when you threatened her grandbabies. That first day, I did what I'd done 1,000 times as a principal when a child arrived at school showing signs of neglect. I documented everything. After breakfast, I gave the children baths. All 5 of them were dirty. Not played outside, dirty. Genuinely unwashed. Little Olivia's hair was matted with what looked like days-old food. Jacob had a diaper rash so severe I almost took him to urgent care right then. The older 3 had body odor that absolutely broke my heart. When was the last time anyone had helped them bathe properly? I took photographs. I know that sounds clinical, cold even. But Carol had been crystal clear on the phone. "Document everything, Margaret. Dates, times, conditions, photos when appropriate. If this goes legal, you need evidence." While they were in the tub, doors open, me supervising the little ones, I went through those garbage bags Brandon had sent. 2 garbage bags for 5 children for 2 weeks. Inside I found 3 stained t-shirts, 2 pairs of shorts, 1 pair of pants that were way too small for Mason, 4 mismatched socks, 2 pull-ups for Olivia, nowhere near enough for 2 weeks, and absolutely no pajamas. No underwear for 3 of the children, no toothbrushes. No medications, even though I knew Jacob needed daily antihistamine for his allergies. 1 box of generic cereal, nothing else. I sat on my bedroom floor and cried. What kind of father sends his children away for 2 weeks with essentially nothing? What kind of father cares so little? I photographed the contents, wrote down exactly what was there and what wasn't. Then I went shopping. By evening, all 5 children had new clothes, new shoes, toiletries, proper beds made up in my guest rooms, toys, books, and full bellies. I spent almost $800. I didn't care. These babies needed care. That night, after I tucked them in, 12-year-old Lily lingered in the doorway. "Nana, thank you for the new clothes and stuff." "You're so welcome, sweetheart." She looked down at her feet. "Daddy says we're too expensive, that we cost too much money. He says that's why we can't have new things." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I sat on her bed and took her hands. "Lily, honey, children aren't expensive to a parent who loves them. Children are treasures. You are not a burden. Do you understand me?" She nodded, but I could see in her eyes she didn't believe me. Years of her father's poison had taught her she was worthless. Over the next few days, I learned more from those children's innocent comments than any private investigator could have uncovered. Day 2, Wednesday. Mason asked me, "Nana, can we have lunch?" It was noon, normal lunchtime. "Of course, sweetheart. What would you like?" "Daddy usually doesn't come home for lunch, so we just have to wait for dinner." I stopped cutting sandwiches. "What do you eat during the day when Daddy's at work and Mommy's home with you?" Mason shrugged. "Mommy tries to make stuff, but sometimes there's no food. She cries a lot about that." No food. Emma was crying because she couldn't feed her children. Day 3, Thursday. 7-year-old Sophia asked me, "Nana, why do we have to be quiet in your house?" "You don't, sweetheart. You can play and laugh and be as loud as you want." Her eyes went wide. "Really? Daddy says we have to be quiet, or he gets really, really mad. He yells super loud when we're too noisy. Sometimes Mommy gets in trouble too for not making us be quiet." Day 4, Friday. Little Jacob looked up at me with those big worried eyes while I was making breakfast. "Is Daddy going to be mad we're having so much food?" I crouched down to his level. "No, honey. Why would he be mad?" "He says Mommy wastes too much money on food, that we eat too much, but Nana, I'm always hungry." Every single comment was a knife straight to my heart. And every single comment went into my documentation. Date, time, exact words, context. On Friday evening, Lily was helping me make dinner. She was chattering away, more relaxed than I'd seen her, when she said casually, "I bet Daddy's having fun in Cancun with his girlfriend." I froze. The knife in my hand stopped mid-chop. "What did you say, sweetheart?" "Cancun. That's where he said he was going. I heard him packing and talking on the phone about beach resorts. He told the lady on the phone he couldn't wait to see her in a bikini." She wrinkled her nose. It was really gross. My hands were shaking. I set down the knife carefully. "When did you hear this, Lily?" "Monday night. I came downstairs to get water and Daddy was in his office on the phone. He didn't see me." So, Brandon wasn't on a business trip at all. He was in Cancun with another woman. And Emma? Where was Emma? I'd been calling her phone every day since they left. Always straight to voicemail. Always. I texted her, "Emma, honey, please call me. I need to know you're okay." 3 hours later, a text came back. "I'm fine, Mom. Tell the kids I love them." That was it. No warmth, no details. Just a stilted, brief message. I called the number immediately. It rang once, then someone, Brandon, I was certain, declined the call. I called Carol. "He's in Cancun with another woman. Emma's not with him. I don't know where she is, but I think she's still at their house and he's controlling her phone." Carol was quiet for a moment. "Margaret, I need you to be very careful here. If he's isolating her, this is more serious than financial neglect. This is domestic abuse, controlling behavior. We need to move strategically. Tell me what to do." "First, keep documenting everything with the kids. Second, I'm going to have a friend do some digging into Brandon's finances. If he's spending money on trips while his children go hungry, there's a paper trail. Third, we need to check on Emma physically. Can you get into their house? I have a key for emergencies. Tomorrow morning, we're going over there. I'm coming with you. We'll document what we find. And Margaret, bring your camera." That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about Emma alone in that house across the street. Was she okay? Was she eating? Why wasn't she answering my calls? Saturday morning at 8 a.m., Carol knocked on my door. We walked across the street together. The house looked normal from outside. Neat lawn that Brandon paid a service to maintain. Clean exterior. But I knew what normal could hide. I'd seen it too many times in my career. I unlocked the door. "Emma, honey, it's Mom. Are you here?" Silence. We went inside, and the smell hit me first. Garbage that hadn't been taken out. Mildew. Neglect. The living room was cluttered, but not terrible. Then we got to the kitchen. Empty cupboards. I mean truly, completely empty. Maybe a single can of beans, some stale crackers. The refrigerator had condiments, some wilted lettuce turning brown, and nothing else. No milk, no eggs, no juice, no food for 5 children. Carol was photographing everything while I stood there trying not to be sick from rage. We went upstairs. The children's rooms broke me completely. 3 kids were sharing one bedroom with only 2 twin beds. They'd been sleeping multiple children to a bed. The mattresses were stained. 2 of them didn't even have sheets. Toys were broken, missing pieces. The closets had almost no clothes in them. But Brandon and Emma's master bedroom? Immaculate. King-size bed with expensive linens. Brandon's closet was full of designer suits, Italian leather shoes, silk ties. Emma's closet was nearly empty. Just a few worn outfits hanging there like ghosts. Then I found Brandon's office. He'd left his desk unlocked. Arrogant fool probably thought no one would dare enter his private space. Carol and I went through it systematically, carefully, photographing everything. We found bank statements showing Brandon had 4 separate accounts, 3 that Emma clearly didn't know about. Credit card bills for expensive restaurants, jewelry that Emma had never received, luxury hotels. Emails printed out from someone named Amber talking about our trip to Cancun and finally getting away from your boring family. A burner phone in the drawer with text messages to multiple women. Multiple. Legal documents where Brandon had been systematically moving money out of joint accounts into ones only he controlled. And a file folder labeled Divorce Strategy with notes about hiding assets and proving Emma was an unfit mother. Carol's face was grim. "Margaret, this is financial abuse, and he's planning to divorce her while leaving her with nothing. These documents show premeditation. He's been planning this for months, maybe longer." I was shaking with rage. "Where is Emma?" We found her in the basement. There was a small room down there, more like a storage area with a bare mattress on the floor. Emma was there, asleep at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, in what was essentially a prison. "Emma!" I shook her gently. She woke with a start, disoriented and terrified. "Mom, what are you? You can't be here. Brandon said I can't have visitors while he's gone. I'm not supposed to." "Emma, stop. Just stop. Where is he, really?" And then it all came pouring out, the truth I'd been too afraid to see. Brandon had told her she had to stay in the house for 2 weeks, to think about what a terrible mother and wife she'd been. He'd taken her phone, her car keys, her wallet, left her $40 for 2 weeks. Told her if she left the house or contacted anyone, he'd file for divorce and make sure she never saw the kids again. He had lawyers, he said. She had nothing. He'd been gaslighting her for years, telling her she was incompetent, stupid, worthless, that she couldn't manage money, couldn't take care of the children properly, couldn't do anything right. And she'd started to believe him. She thought she deserved this treatment. While he dumped their children on me and flew to Mexico with his 24-year-old secretary. I held my daughter while she cried. Carol was already on her phone, calling her lawyer contacts, calling someone about emergency protective orders. "Emma, honey, listen to me. You're coming home with me. Right now. We're going to fix this, all of it. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded, terrified but hopeful for the first time in God knows how long. We brought her to my house. The children's faces when they saw their mother, pure joy mixed with confusion. "Mommy, you're here. Daddy said you were on a trip. Emma hugged each of them, crying. Mommy's trip got canceled, babies. I'm staying with Nana for a while. That night, after the kids were asleep, Emma, Carol, and I sat at my kitchen table. Carol laid out all the evidence we'd found. Emma's face grew paler with each revelation. He's been hiding money? For years? Yes, Carol said gently. He's stolen from your family, from your children. While they went hungry, he spent thousands on affairs and trips. Emma looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Mom, what do I do? I took her hand and held it tight. We fight back, and we make absolutely sure he never, ever hurts you or those children again. Carol smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was strategic and fierce. Margaret, how much time do we have until he gets back? 9 days. Perfect. That's more than enough time to dismantle his entire life. And right then, sitting at my kitchen table with my broken daughter and my brilliant lawyer friend, I knew exactly what we were going to do. Brandon Mitchell thought I was just some useless old woman. He was about to learn the hardest lesson of his miserable life. The next 9 days were the most intense of my entire life. Carol brought in her friend Patricia, a divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict cases and financial abuse. Patricia took one look at our evidence and said, "This is one of the clearest cases I've seen. He's going down." Here's what we discovered as we dug deeper into Brandon's life. The financial fraud was staggering. Brandon earned $180,000 a year in sales. Good money. More than enough to support a family of 7 comfortably. But his paychecks went into an account only he controlled. He gave Emma $200 a week for groceries and household expenses. $200 for 7 people. Meanwhile, we found he'd opened 3 secret credit cards with $90,000 in combined debt. He had a separate bank account with $45,000 in it, money he'd been siphoning from their joint accounts over the past 2 years. He'd been taking cash advances and gambling, losing thousands. He'd bought a timeshare in Miami under only his name. He'd purchased jewelry worth $15,000 for various girlfriends. We found all the receipts. And that Cancun trip? $8,000 for him and Amber at a luxury all-inclusive resort. All of this while his children wore shoes with holes in them and went to bed hungry. I sat in Patricia's office looking at the bank statement spread across her desk, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate cruelty. Patricia started filing emergency motions. Freeze all accounts in Brandon's name. Emergency custody order giving Emma full temporary custody. Restraining order preventing Brandon from returning to the family home. Court order requiring immediate child support. Protective order for Emma and the children. The courts don't look kindly on fathers who abandon their children and starve them while living lavishly, Patricia said with a grim smile. We'll have these approved within 48 hours. She was right. By Monday afternoon, every single motion had been granted, but we weren't done. Not even close. Carol and I did some old-fashioned detective work. Using the information from Brandon's burner phone, we identified 4 women he'd been involved with over the past 2 years. Amber, 24, his current secretary, the Cancun girlfriend. Jessica, a woman he'd met at a sales conference in Vegas. He'd been flying out to see her every few months, charging it all to his corporate card. Michelle, a client he'd been entertaining on company expenses for over a year. And Kayla, his gym trainer. He'd been paying for her apartment. I know it sounds petty, documenting his affairs. But Carol explained it perfectly. In court, this establishes a pattern of behavior. It shows he was prioritizing other women over his family. It shows where the money went. It all matters. We compiled every email, every text message, every receipt. The sheer volume was staggering. This man had been leading a complete double life for years. Then Patricia brought in a child welfare specialist to interview the children. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and she was gentle and careful with them. Emma gave permission, though her hands shook signing the consent forms. Dr. Chen spent 2 hours with the kids. When she came back downstairs, her face was pale. "Mrs. Thompson, I need to be very direct with you. These children show clear signs of chronic neglect." She opened her folder. All 5 exhibit food insecurity behaviors. They hoard snacks. They eat rapidly, like the food might be taken away. They ask permission for basic needs. Mason told me he's learned not to ask for things because Daddy gets mad when we cost money. She continued. Jacob's allergies have been untreated for months. Lily needs glasses. She can barely see the board at school and has been getting headaches, but no one took her to an optometrist. Sophia has 6 cavities from lack of dental care. The children use words like burden, expensive, too loud, bad to describe themselves. This is severe emotional abuse. Dr. Chen looked at me directly. If these children were in school and a teacher had observed these signs, CPS would have been called immediately. Your son-in-law has been committing criminal child neglect. Criminal. That word hung in the air like smoke. Carol made a call to her contact at the police department, Detective Ryan Cooper, who specialized in fraud and family crimes. Detective Cooper came to my house on day 5 of Brandon's trip. He was maybe 45, with kind eyes but a cop's sharp attention to detail. I showed him everything: the financial records, the emails, the photographs of the children's condition when they arrived, the empty cupboards in their home, the garbage bags, the statements from Dr. Chen. He looked at the photos of my grandchildren for a long time. I could see his jaw clench. He had kids too. There were pictures on his phone when he showed me his badge. Mrs. Thompson, this is enough for multiple charges: financial fraud, child endangerment, potentially more. When does he return? 4 days. Perfect. We'll be waiting for him. While we built the legal case against Brandon, something beautiful was happening under my roof. Emma was coming back to life. The first few days, she was terrified of everything. She'd flinch when someone raised their voice even slightly. She apologized constantly. "I'm sorry," was every other sentence out of her mouth. Years of Brandon's abuse had trained her to believe everything was her fault. But as she spent real time with the children, time without Brandon's criticism and control, she started to smile again. She played with them, laughed at their jokes, made silly voices reading bedtime stories. I heard her singing in the kitchen one morning, and I nearly cried. I hadn't heard her sing in years. One evening, she was helping me make dinner while the kids played in the backyard. We could hear their laughter through the window. "Mom," she said quietly, "I forgot what it's like to not be afraid in my own home. I forgot what it's like to not walk on eggshells every single second of every day." I hugged her tight. "You're never going back to that, Emma. I promise you." She pulled back, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry I let it get this bad. I'm so sorry I let him treat the kids this way. What kind of mother?" "Stop. Right now." I took her face in my hands. "You were being abused. Abuse makes you question reality. It makes you doubt yourself. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? None of it." Patricia had given Emma some materials to read about domestic abuse and coercive control. Emma read them late into the night, and I could see the recognition dawning in her eyes. It was like watching someone wake up from a nightmare. "He did all of this on purpose," she said one morning, looking stunned. "The isolation, the financial control, making me doubt myself. Telling everyone I was confused, incompetent, it was all deliberate, it was all part of a pattern." "Yes," I said, "and now we're going to make sure he faces consequences for every single bit of it." On day 7, Carol, Patricia, Detective Cooper and I met at Patricia's office. We had everything ready. The legal documents were filed and approved. All of Brandon's accounts were frozen. He wouldn't be able to access a single dollar. The emergency custody order was granted. Emma had full legal custody, and Brandon had 0 rights until a hearing. The restraining order was in place. He was barred from the house, from Emma, from the children. The house was legally Emma's to occupy. Brandon had no right to enter. The criminal investigation was officially underway. Warrants were prepared for Brandon's arrest on child endangerment charges. The financial fraud investigation was opened, and Detective Cooper had contacted Brandon's employer. Turns out sleeping with your 24-year-old subordinate secretary violates corporate ethics policy. So does charging personal expenses to your company card, which Brandon had been doing for months. He'd be fired the moment the company was notified. The practical arrangements were all handled too. I'd paid a locksmith to change every lock on Emma's house. Movers were scheduled to arrive the morning Brandon returned. They'd remove all his belongings and put them in a storage unit we'd rented in his name, paid for 1 month. After that, not our problem. Emma's name was added back to all the utilities and accounts. New bank accounts were opened in her name only. Patricia had even gotten a temporary restraining order against Amber, the secretary, preventing her from contacting Emma or coming near the house. When he lands, Patricia explained, laying it all out like a battle plan, his credit cards won't work. His bank accounts will be frozen. He can't access the house. His wife has full legal custody of his children. The police want to question him, and his employer knows everything. Carol smiled, that fierce smile of hers. And all of this will happen before he even gets his luggage from baggage claim. I thought about Brandon's smug face 2 weeks ago when he'd dumped those children on my porch, when he'd said I don't do anything anymore, when he'd treated my daughter like property and my grandchildren like burdens he couldn't wait to be rid of. Perfect, I said. We had to tell the children something. Emma sat them down gently that evening. Kids, Mommy needs to talk to you about some changes. Daddy and I are not going to be living together anymore. You're all going to stay with me, and Daddy he might visit you sometimes, but that will be up to a judge to decide. Lily, my sharp 12-year-old, asked quietly, Is it because he's mean to you? Emma's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. Yes, sweetheart, because he's been mean to all of us. And that's not okay. Adults shouldn't be mean to their families. 10-year-old Mason asked, Are we still too expensive? That question broke both of us. Emma pulled him into her arms. You are not expensive. You are precious. You are loved. You are wanted. And anyone who made you feel otherwise was wrong. Do you understand me? You are not a burden. Little Olivia, just 3 years old, asked in her tiny voice, Will Daddy yell at Nana for giving us food? The fact that a 3-year-old was worried about someone being punished for feeding hungry children, that told you everything you needed to know about Brandon's parenting. No, baby, I said, kneeling down to her level. Daddy is not going to yell at anyone anymore. Nana made sure of that. That Saturday night, the night before Brandon was scheduled to return, Emma, the kids, and I had a celebration dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, salad. But it was joyful. The children were laughing. Emma was relaxed. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Accomplished. After the kids went to bed, Emma and I sat on my front porch. We could see her house across the street, dark and waiting. Mom, Emma said quietly, what if he fights this? What if he tries to take the kids? He always said he had lawyers, that he'd make sure I lost everything. Then we show the judge the photographs, the bank statements, the children's statements, Dr. Chen's expert testimony. Emma, he can try to fight, but he won't win. Trust me. She was quiet for a moment, then laughed softly. I can't believe you did all this in 9 days. I smiled. Honey, I was a school principal for 40 years. I dealt with budgets, legal issues, investigations, and entitled parents who thought rules didn't apply to them. Brandon thought I don't do anything anymore. He was very, very wrong. Emma really laughed then. A real, genuine laugh I hadn't heard in years. He really messed with the wrong mother-in-law. Yes, I said. Yes, he did. That night I slept better than I had in months. Everything was in place. Every document filed. Every authority notified. Every piece of evidence compiled and organized. Brandon Mitchell had spent 2 weeks in Cancun with his mistress, spending money while his children went hungry, believing he'd come home to the same submissive wife and ignorant old mother-in-law he'd left behind. Tomorrow, he was going to learn what happens when you underestimate a grandmother protecting her family. And I was going to enjoy every single second of watching his world collapse. Sunday, 2 p.m. Brandon's flight lands at the airport. I watch the time tick by, calm and resolute, surrounded by the arsenal of evidence we've accumulated and my network of support. Carol updates me. His cards get declined the moment he tries to pay for his parking ticket. His accounts are frozen. Patricia confirms the restraining order, emergency custody, and court orders were sent by certified mail before noon. The movers are already removing every last trace of Brandon's possessions from Emma's house. I sit at the kitchen table with my phone in my hands. I'm not anxious. I'm ready. This is the moment everything begins to shift. Emma paces in the living room, the children distracted by cartoons. The house is oddly peaceful, almost sacred. At 3:15 p.m., the moving truck rumbles away, and Brandon's Mercedes pulls up across the street. I see through the lace curtain. He's on the phone, agitated, gesturing wildly. Within moments, my phone rings. Unknown number. Margaret. What's going on? My cards don't work. My keys won't open the house. Where are my kids? His voice is shrill, panicked. I put him on speaker for Carol and Patricia to hear, keeping my tone flat. Hello, Brandon. How was Cancun? He's silent for an instant, then tries to bluster. Don't play games, Margaret. Put Emma on the phone. I need to talk to my wife. You can't. There's a restraining order. All contact must go through Patricia now. He splutters, then tries to switch tactics. What the hell did you do? Where are my children? I answer calmly. They're safe. They're being cared for. But you abandoned them, and you'll answer for it. He lapses into threats, then begging, then rage, cycling through emotions, aware, finally, that the world he controlled is unraveling in front of him. Patricia interjects. Brandon, this is Mrs. Mitchell's attorney. You are about to be served with divorce papers and protection orders. We suggest you contact your own attorney. He yells something I can't understand and hangs up. Across the street, Detective Cooper arrives in his unmarked car. I watch as he and another officer approach Brandon, who deflates before my eyes, his bravado gone, replaced by animal confusion. They speak for several minutes. Brandon gestures at his own house, at ours, lost and furious. He's told to leave. He stumbles into his Mercedes, then turns and stares at our window. Our eyes lock. I lift my coffee mug and smile. Emma stands beside me now, trembling but upright. Did he really think? I shake my head. He thought he was smarter than all of us. That women, especially women our age, don't matter, don't notice, don't fight back. He thought no one would protect the children. He was wrong, Emma. He was wrong about everything. For the first time, Emma smiles, a tentative, real smile. The children rush in, hugging her legs. The tension in their little bodies is gone, replaced by relief and hope. I kneel and hug them tight. Later, Carol and Patricia discuss next steps: hearings, asset division, therapy, school arrangements. Emma listens, nods, finally empowered to make decisions. Brandon texts that night, a string of angry messages, accusations, even threats. But with every ping, I feel no fear. I'm shielded by the power of evidence, alliances, and law. Before bed, Emma sits on her children's beds, kisses them goodnight, and promises real safety. I listen from the hallway. Have you ever seen justice in real time? Not cowboys and movie heroes, but mothers and grandmothers quietly drawing lines, protecting the vulnerable, refusing defeat? That's what happened in our house that Sunday. But the story isn't quite over. To know what happened when Brandon finally tried to fight back and how our family found its real freedom, you'll need to hear the confrontation itself. Would you have done what I did? Or would you have waited, hoping he'd change? I wonder sometimes how many women are out there, watching, wishing for their own turning point. The day the confrontation finally came, I felt both ancient and newly born. I watched the sky that morning, the clouds moving slow and determined above the houses. Every person in my kitchen was tense. Carol, Patricia, Detective Cooper drinking black coffee at my table, Emma sitting rigid but upright. The children were playing in the backyard, watched over by Carol's teenage grandson, who volunteered to help keep them safe. I could hear their laughter, thin as birdsong, drifting through the window. By noon, we knew Brandon was on his way. He had tried calling, texting. He'd even emailed Emma from a throwaway account, making threats, demanding she meet him without lawyers, like adults. Patricia shut that down immediately. The police were already in position, one marked car at the curb, Detective Cooper plainclothes a few houses down. I heard the Mercedes before I saw it, engine louder than it ought to be, a final show of force. Brandon threw the car in park at the curb, stormed up the walkway, and pounded on the door. I stood in the foyer, heart steady. Emma opened the door before I could stop her. "Hello, Brandon," she said, voice even. She did not step back. He tried to push past her. "Get out of the way. I am here for my kids." Patricia appeared behind Emma. "Not today, Mr. Mitchell. You're not allowed inside. There is a restraining order. The police are here to enforce the order." He blanched for half a second, then rallied. "Emma, what is this? Who do you think you are, humiliating me? These are my children. This is my house." Emma took a shaky breath. "This isn't your house anymore. The courts gave me occupancy, Brandon. You're not allowed here." He turned to me. Anger burned in his face. "This is your doing. You've poisoned Emma against me. You think you get to take everything? My family? My life?" I kept my tone quiet. "You abandoned your children, Brandon. You spent thousands in Cancun while they went hungry. You left Emma alone and terrified. You did this!" he shouted, voice breaking. "None of this will hold up. You have nothing. I'm calling my lawyer." Patricia stepped forward, a thick folder in her arms. "Here are your papers. Divorce, custody, protection orders, formal notice from your workplace, and documentation of your expenditures and neglect." Her tone was clinical and merciless. He snatched the folder, flipping through the pages at random, his face crumpling in rage as he scanned the account freezes, the evidence logs, the medical reports, the photos of his children on the day they arrived. Filthy, sunken-eyed, in need of care. He tried a different tactic. "Emma, you need to think this through. You're confused. This is all your mother's fault. She never liked me. Emma took a step forward, voice trembling only slightly. "Stop. I'm not confused anymore. I know what you did. I know you lied, hid money, hurt me and the kids. I let it go too long because I was afraid. I'm not afraid now." He scoffed, but for the first time, it was hollow. "You need me." She shook her head. "No, we don't." "Fine." He switched like a light, appealing to me now. "Margaret, please, we can fix this. You're a mother, you understand. Don't destroy everything over one mistake. Emma will regret this. The children will regret this." I looked him in the eye. "The only thing I regret is not acting sooner. You thought no one would believe us because you hid it so well, but you forgot who I am." He made a final, wild gesture, shouting at everyone in the room, "You're all making a mistake. You'll see. You'll all pay for this." That's when Detective Cooper entered, firm and calm. "Mr. Mitchell, you are under investigation for child endangerment and financial fraud. Please collect your personal belongings from the storage unit as arranged by your attorney. You are not allowed on this property, and any violation will result in immediate arrest." The last of the fight seemed to drain from Brandon. He looked at Emma, then at the children, visible through the side window, laughing and running under the trees. Whatever mask he'd been wearing for years finally broke. His shoulders sank. His hands shook. There were no more arguments, no more threats, only stunned silence. He left, escorted to his car by the officers. There were no handcuffs yet. That would come later, as the legal process unfolded. But the wedge between him and our family was real and permanent. When the door closed, Emma crumpled in my arms, sobbing, not from fear, but relief. Carol hugged us both. Patricia tore off her glasses, wiping her eyes. I held Emma through the storm of tears, feeling, for the first time in years, the electric jolt of justice well done, for my daughter, for my grandchildren, and honestly, for myself. That night, after the police left, after Carol went home, after Patricia called to confirm that Brandon had already tried and failed to empty the last joint account, Emma and I sat at the kitchen table, holding hands in silence. The children came in, pajama-clad, sleepy-eyed. Lily asked the question so many women never hear. "Are we safe now, Nana?" I choked on the answer. "Yes, honey. You are safe. You're all safe now." Emma looked at me, voice absurdly fragile. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I squeezed her hand. There was never a moment I didn't want to help. Sometimes we just need the right moment, the right reason to become brave. You were brave. You saved them too. Have you ever stood at the end of a long, dark tunnel and finally breathed the first clean air? That's what it was like in our home that night. The real work wasn't over. Court would take months. The healing would take longer. But we'd reached the top of the mountain. If you have ever doubted the power of truth and persistence, please hear me. Justice is possible, and the most underestimated people, like a grandmother with nothing left to lose, can change everything. Weeks turned into months after Brandon left our doorstep for good. The tension that had filled my house slowly dissolved with the sound of laughter, quiet dinners, and new routines. Emma began to sleep through the night again. The children started returning to themselves. Lily drawing in her sketchbook, Mason riding his bike outside, Sophia begging to help me bake cookies, Jacob collecting leaves, Olivia carrying her stuffed rabbit everywhere. Safety changed them. They grew lighter, more curious, less afraid. Court hearings came and went. Each date, Patricia prepared Emma and me for new rounds of argument, paperwork, testimony. The judge listened patiently as we laid out every detail, the financial records, the photos from their first morning, the specialists' reports. Dr. Chen testified, calm and adamant, about the neglect and emotional scars. Brandon always appeared in expensive suits, but they looked wrong on him now, like armor he couldn't keep polished. His lawyer tried to paint Emma as unstable, but the evidence was overwhelming. In the end, Emma won full custody, permanent protection orders, and control over her financial future. Brandon was found liable for child endangerment and financial fraud. His company terminated him the same week as the final verdict. There was no dramatic breakdown, just a slow, quiet acknowledgement that he had lost. I heard, months later, that he moved to an apartment out of state, trying to rebuild. The children rarely asked about him. When they did, Emma answered honestly, "He has things he needs to learn before he can be a safe parent." Life didn't snap back to perfect. There were days when Emma woke from nightmares, when Lily asked if they'd ever move again, or when the silence lingered at bedtime. But these were healing wounds, not infections. Carol continued to help. Her legal advice turned into neighborly chats over tea. Detective Cooper checked in to see if the kids wanted baseball tickets. Patricia invited Emma to a support group for mothers recovering from abuse. Gradually, Emma found work part-time at a local school, her confidence returning. She was no longer defined by Brandon's words. She was a mother, a sister, a daughter, and finally, her own person. One Saturday, during a picnic in our backyard, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "You saved us, Mom. I never thought I could live like this again." I understood her more than ever, and I understood myself. For all the years I felt invisible, spent wondering what purpose I served, this was it. My age, my experience, my stubborn heart, they were exactly what made me powerful enough to act. I wasn't doing nothing. I was building the life my family needed, brick by brick. Whenever neighbors or friends asked how we managed, I'd simply say, "We watched out for each other. That's all." If you're watching this, wondering if it's possible to start over after betrayal and isolation, please believe that it is. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let pain define your future. Have you ever rebuilt after heartbreak or helped someone begin again? Share your story or advice in the comments. If this story gave you hope, please like and subscribe. Your voice matters for families everywhere. I'm 67 years old, and I am finally, truly seen.